What if the child you mourned for years was alive watching you from afar? What if your second chance at love brought your first love's legacy back to life? Hit subscribe and ring that bell to follow this powerful tale of redemption. Comment your location below. Let's see how far this story of healing travels. Now let me tell you about the cowboy who lost everything in flames only to rise from the ashes. Cowboy's dead daughter returns as doctor saves town from plague. Second Chance Loeb Western. The nightmare always began the same way, smoke curling under the barn door, like accusing fingers, the sound of horses screaming, and Sarah's voice calling his name through the flames. Cole Matthews jerked awake in his chair, whiskey bottle crashing to the floor, the ghost of his wife's final cry still echoing in the pre-dawn darkness of his empty house. 2 years. 2 years since the fire took everything, his wife, his daughter, his will to live. The only thing that remained was this ranch, 500 acres of Montana grassland that would belong to the bank in 30 days if he couldn't find a miracle. Thunder rumbled overhead, promising the kind of storm that turned roads to rivers and made men reconsider their faith. Cole stood his body protesting the night spent in a chair and walked to the window. In the distance, barely visible through the gathering clouds, a lone figure struggled along the muddy road toward town. Not his problem. Nothing was his problem anymore except the bottle and the memories. But something about the way the figure moved, determined despite exhaustion, pushing forward when falling would be easier, made him pause. Then the figure collapsed. "Damn it," Cole muttered, grabbing his coat and hat. He couldn't save his family, but apparently he still couldn't watch someone die without trying to help. 300 miles away, that same storm had been battering the train for hours. Doctor. Emma Sinclair pressed a chloroform-soaked cloth to her patient's face while the car rocked violently on the rails. The boy couldn't be more than 10, had taken a bullet meant for his father during a robbery gone wrong. "Hold him steady," Emma commanded the terrified parents, her hands already moving with surgical precision despite the train's lurching. She'd performed operations in worse conditions, field hospitals during the cholera outbreak, tenements where the floor was more blood than wood. The bullet had lodged near the boy's liver. One wrong move, one sudden jolt of the train, and he'd bleed out in minutes. Emma breathed deeply, finding that still center her adoptive father had taught her, the place where hands became instruments of God's will, where doubt had no purchase. The extraction took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of sweat and prayer and hands that never trembled despite the chaos around them. When she finally held up the bloody piece of lead, the boy's mother sobbed with relief. "He'll live," Emma said, already suturing the wound. "Keep the bandage clean and changed. When you reach a town with a doctor, have them check for infection." "You're a doctor," the father said. Emma's laugh was bitter. "Not anymore. Not officially." She returned to her seat as dawn broke over the Montana mountains, her medical bag heavy with the weight of her father's instruments, the only thing she'd taken when she fled Boston. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was his final letter, the one that revealed everything: the blackmail, the forced testimony, the powerful men who'd destroyed him when he refused to falsify medical records. Dr. William Sinclair had died in disgrace, branded a fraud and thief. His daughter had lost her license, her reputation, her future. But the letter named names, including Julian Rourke, mine owner murderer, and the man her father had been gathering evidence against. Cedar Ridge, Montana. That's where Rourke operated now. That's where Emma would start over practice medicine, whether the town accepted her or not, and maybe somehow find justice for the man who'd saved her from an orphanage and given her purpose. The train wheezed to a stop at a water station. Cedar Ridge was still 10 miles away, but the conductor announced they'd go no further, bridge washed out ahead. Emma gathered her bags, pulled her cloak tight against the rain, and began walking. Cole found the woman face down in the mud, her medical bag spilled open beside her, revealing instruments that caught what little light penetrated the storm clouds. She was breathing barely, her skin burning with fever despite the cold rain. He should take her to town, let someone else deal with this. But Cedar Ridge was 5 miles away, and she might not survive the journey. His ranch was closer. Cole lifted her easily. She weighed almost nothing, as if grief had hollowed out her bones the same way it had his. Her dark hair was plastered to her face, and even unconscious, her expression held a determination that reminded him painfully of Sarah. "Don't die on me," he muttered, carrying her toward his house. "I've got enough ghosts already." Behind them, hidden in the cottonwood trees, a small figure watched. The girl was maybe 8, dressed in a curious mix of Cheyenne clothing and settler cast-offs. She'd been watching Cole Matthews for months now, drawn by something she couldn't name but felt in her bones. The woman he carried looked sick, looked like she needed help. Mary, though that wasn't the name the Cheyenne called her, slipped through the rain toward the ranch. She knew where Cole kept his medicines, knew which herbs grew wild that could break a fever. She'd leave them where he'd find them, like she always did when he needed help, but was too proud or broken to ask. The white man who cried in his sleep didn't know she existed, but she knew him had known him since the night of the Great Fire when everything changed. Soon maybe it would be time to tell the truth, but not yet, not until she was sure he could bear it. Emma woke to the sound of arguing, a man's deep voice tight with frustration and another man's calmer tones trying to reason. I don't care if she's a doctor, Sam. She's burning up with fever and needs help. And I'm telling you, boss, that T appeared on the porch this morning, same as the others, singing Crow's medicine. You know it works. Superstition and coincidence. That superstition saved your horse last month, and Tom Bradley's boy the month before that. Emma tried to speak, managed only a croak. Both men turned to her, one tall and broken-looking, with eyes that had seen too much, the other older, weathered, with the kind face of someone who'd spent his life taking care of others. Water, she whispered. The broken man, Cole, she'd heard the other call him, brought her a cup with surprising gentleness. Slowly now, you've been out for 2 days. 2 days, Emma tried to sit up, the room spinning. My bag. Safe. Cole nodded toward the corner where her medical supplies sat carefully repacked. You're a doctor. I am. It's complicated. Emma focused on his face, something familiar nagging at her. You're Cole Matthews. You own this ranch. His expression shuddered. How'd you know that? Instead of answering, Emma reached for her bag with shaking hands. Inside, tucked in a hidden pocket, was a photograph of her father in his Union uniform, standing beside a young Confederate soldier he'd saved after Antietam, two enemies who'd become friends in a field hospital. Cole's intake of breath was sharp. That's me. And William Sinclair. He died last month. The papers said. The papers lied. Emma's voice was stronger now, fierce. He was murdered, professionally disgraced because he wouldn't falsify medical records for Julian Rourke. His last letter told me to find you. Said you were the only honest man he'd met who'd survived the war with his conscience intact. Cole laughed, bitter and broken. Then he didn't know me well. I couldn't even save my own family. The fire. I heard about it in town when I asked for directions. Emma studied him, this man her father had spoken of with such respect. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Doesn't bring them back. Cole stood abruptly. You can stay until you're well enough to travel. Sam will see to your needs. He left before Emma could respond, but not before she saw the tremor in his hands, not from drink, though she could smell whiskey on him, but from a grief so profound it had rewritten his nervous system. Sam, the older man, sighed. Don't take it personal, miss. He ain't been right since the fire. Blames himself, though, weren't nothing he could have done. Barn went up like it was soaked in kerosene. Was it? Emma asked quietly. Sam's eyes sharpened. What makes you ask that? Because Julian Rourke's name keeps appearing near tragedies. My father was investigating him before he died. Mining fraud, land grabs, and at least 3 suspicious fires that benefited his operations. Cole's land has the best water rights in the valley, Sam said slowly. Rourke's been trying to buy it for 2 years. Cole refused even after he trailed off. After the fire made him desperate enough to sell. He'll lose the ranch in a month if he can't pay the banknote. Would have sold already, but... Sam glanced toward the window. He says this land holds his family's graves. Won't let them rest on Rourke's property. Emma followed his gaze and saw a small cemetery on a hill, 2 crosses stark against the sky. But there was something else, a flash of movement in the trees, a small figure watching the house. Who's that? Emma pointed. Sam squinted. Don't see nobody, might be the ghost. Ghost? Local Cheyennes say a spirit child watches over the ranch, leaves medicine, sometimes herbs and such, like that tea that helped your fever break. Cole don't believe it, but strange things happen. Good strange, mostly. Emma filed this away, her mind already working despite her weakness. A child herbs that mysteriously appeared, a fire that burned too hot and fast to be natural. Sam, I need you to do something for me. Go to town and quietly ask about the night of the fire. Who was seen? Were any strangers in town? Anything unusual? What are you thinking? I'm thinking my father sent me here for more than one reason. And I'm thinking Cole Matthews deserves to know the truth about that night. Over the next days, Emma recovered with remarkable speed, thanks in part to the mysterious herbal teas that kept appearing on the porch. She tried to stay out of Cole's way, but the ranch wasn't large enough to avoid him entirely. She watched him work, the careful way he handled the horses, despite his obvious desire to be numb, the mechanical precision of his movements that spoke of a man going through motions rather than living. He was handsome in the way of men who'd been carved by hardship, all sharp angles and weathered strength, but his eyes were dead as winter skalkbang. Until the evening, she found him in the barn, holding a small wooden horse, tears running silently down his face. I'm sorry, Emma said, starting to back away. I made this for her 5th birthday. Cole said, his voice hollow. She called it Mr. Gallopy. Slept with it every night. It's all I could save from her room before the roof collapsed. Emma moved closer, her healer's instincts overriding propriety. Tell me about her. Lucy, her name was Lucy. Sarah called her our sunshine girl because she woke up smiling every morning. She wanted to be a horse doctor like Doc Henderson in town. Used to pretend to check the horses' hearts with a piece of rope she called her stethoscope. He laughed broken. She would have loved meeting a real doctor, especially a woman doctor. She sounds wonderful. She was. They both were. And I let them die. How? Emma asked gently. I was in town. Rourke had called a meeting about water rights, wouldn't take no for an answer. Sarah begged me not to go, said she had a bad feeling. But I went anyway, too proud to look weak in front of the other ranchers. His hands clenched around the toy horse. By the time I saw the smoke and rode back, the barn was engulfed. I could hear them screaming, Emma. Hear them calling for me. I tried to get in, but the beam fell blocked the door. Sam and the others had to drag me away. Emma touched his shoulder, felt him flinch. Cole, that wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? If I'd been here? If you'd been here, you'd be dead too. And then, who would remember them? Who would carry their stories? Cole looked at her, then really looked at her for the first time. Why do you care? You don't know me. My father did. He said you were the bravest man he knew because you saved enemy soldiers at risk to yourself. He said you had honor when honor was dangerous. Your father was wrong. I'm a coward who drinks to forget and can't even manage that properly. Before Emma could respond, Sam burst through the barn door. Boss, we got trouble. Fevers broke out in town. 3 dead already, dozen more sick. They're saying it's cholera. Emma was moving before he finished speaking, grabbing her medical bag. It's not cholera. Wrong symptoms for the season. Sounds more like typhoid. We need to get there now. They won't accept help from a woman doctor, Cole said. Then they'll die. Emma's voice was steel. I didn't survive Boston's politics and my father's murder to watch people die from pride. Cole studied her, this slight woman with fierce eyes and steady hands, and made a decision that would change everything. Saddle 3 horses, Sam. We're going to town. As they prepared to leave, none of them noticed a small figure slip from the shadows and run toward the Cheyenne village. Mary had heard everything about the sickness, about the woman being a doctor, about the man her grandmother called the grieving father, finally choosing to act instead of merely exist. Change was coming to Cedar Ridge. The spirits had whispered it in the wind, and now she understood why she'd been drawn to watch, to wait, to protect. The time of secrets was ending. She ran faster, her message urgent. If the sickness was what she thought, her people's medicine might be the key. The white doctor would need help, whether she knew it or not. And maybe finally it would be time to tell the grieving father that his sunshine girl hadn't died in the flames after all. Cedar Ridge was dying. Emma could see it in the empty streets, the shuttered windows, the way even the saloon, that last bastion of frontier optimism, had closed its doors. The fever had taken hold with vicious efficiency, and fear had done the rest. 23 sick, 5 dead since yesterday, Sheriff Wallace said through a bandana tied over his face. Doc Henderson was one of the first to go. We sent for help from Billings, but help takes time, and disease doesn't wait. Emma finished, already assessing the situation. Where are you keeping the sick? Church, only building big enough. Emma turned to Cole. I need carbolic acid, all the clean water you can boil, and every clean sheet in town. Sam, find me anyone who's already recovered. They'll have immunity and can help nurse. Sheriff, I need you to enforce a quarantine. No one leaves town until we know what we're dealing with. Now wait just a minute. Mayor Hutchins appeared, his face red with indignation. Who are you to give orders? You're not even a licensed doctor. Emma pulled out her medical degree, water-stained but legitimate. Emma Sinclair, MD, Harvard Medical School. My license was revoked on false charges that I'm happy to discuss after your citizens stop dying. Now, do you want my help or not? A woman doctor, Hutchins scoffed. His words were cut short as Cole stepped forward, his presence suddenly dangerous in a way Emma hadn't seen before. The broken rancher was gone, replaced by something harder, older, the soldier her father had known. This woman saved my life in Boston, Cole lied smoothly. She's the reason I'm standing here. You can accept her help, Hutchins, or you can explain to the widows and orphans why you let pride kill their families. The mayor backed down, but Emma saw the calculation in his eyes. He'd remember this challenge to his authority. The church had been transformed into a makeshift hospital, but it was chaos, sick mixed with dying. No separation, no sanitation. Emma's heart sank. At this rate, they'd lose half the town. We reorganize now, she announced, her voice carrying over the moans and cries. Anyone who can walk, move to the left side. Critical cases to the right. Children in the middle where I can monitor them closely. You can't just, a man started to protest. I can and I will. Emma was already examining the nearest patient, a boy of perhaps 12. Cole, Sam, start moving people, gently but quickly. As they worked, Emma noticed something crucial. The sickest patients all came from the same part of town, the streets nearest the river where Rourke's new mining operation had set up. Sam, she called quietly, those who are sick, do they all draw water from the river? Sam's eyes widened with understanding. The ones from the hill use well water. They're mostly fine except those who visited sick relatives. The water supply is contaminated. Emma's mind raced. We need to stop anyone from drinking river water immediately. That's a serious accusation, a smooth voice said from the doorway. Julian Rourke stood there, impeccably dressed, despite the crisis, flanked by two armed men. He was handsome in the way of men who'd never suffered all polish and sharp edges. Mr. Rourke, Emma didn't look up from her patient. How fortunate that you're here. Your mining operation, what chemicals are you using? Standard processes, nothing harmful. Mercury, arsenic, lead. I don't see how that's because those standard processes have poisoned the water supply and are killing these people. Emma stood, blood on her apron, exhaustion and fury in her eyes. So either tell me exactly what you've been dumping in that river or get out of my hospital. Rourke's expression hardened. You're that Sinclair woman. Your father was a fraud and a thief. My father was murdered for refusing to falsify medical records that would have hidden your crimes in Boston. Emma's voice was deadly quiet. Just like you're murdering these people now. The church fell silent. Even the sick seemed to hold their breath. Cole moved to stand beside Emma, hand resting on his gun. You heard the Dr. Rourke, get out. This isn't over, Rourke said, but he left his men trailing behind. Emma immediately returned to her patients, but Cole caught her arm. You just made a powerful enemy. I already had one. At least now he knows I'm here. As night fell, more sick arrived. Emma worked without rest, teaching volunteers how to care for patients, how to recognize danger signs. She was examining a young girl when she noticed something, a small bundle of herbs tucked under the child's pillow. Where did these come from? Emma asked the mother. A girl brought them. Indian child, maybe 8 or 9. Said they'd help with the fever. I didn't know what else to do. Emma examined the herbs, willowbark echinacea, and something else she didn't recognize. Professional curiosity overrode exhaustion. Did she say anything else? Just that the healing woman needed to know about the yellow root that grows where the poison water meets the clean. Didn't make sense to me, but it made sense to Emma. She turned to Cole. There's a child, a Native American girl. She's been leaving medicine at your ranch. Cole's expression was odd. Sam mentioned something about that. I need to find her. These herbs, they're not just folklore. Someone trained in traditional medicine selected these specifically for typhoid symptoms. The Cheyenne village is 5 miles north, Sam offered. But they don't much like visitors, especially now with the sickness. Then I'll go alone. Emma started packing supplies. Like hell you will. Cole's voice was firm. If you're going, I'm going with you. They rode out at dawn, Emma swaying in her saddle from exhaustion. The Cheyenne village was smaller than she'd expected, maybe 40 people, mostly women and children. An elderly woman met them at the edge, her face painted with symbols Emma didn't recognize. You are the healing woman, the old woman said in accented English. We have been expecting you. I'm Dr. Emma Sinclair. I'm looking for a child, a girl who's been leaving medicine. First you come, see something? The old woman singing crow she introduced herself led them to a small teepee. Inside, a girl sat grinding herbs, her movements precise and practiced. When she looked up, Emma gasped. The child had Cole's eyes, that distinctive gray-blue rare as storm clouds. Her hair was darker, her skin kissed by sun and heritage, but the resemblance was unmistakable. Mary, singing crow said, show them your treasure. The girl reached under her sleeping furs and pulled out a small wooden horse painted and decorated with beads. Emma heard Cole's strangled sound behind her. Mr. Gallopy, he whispered. The child Mary nodded solemnly. Then in perfect, though quiet English, she said, I kept him safe for you, Papa. Cole collapsed to his knees, his whole body shaking. Lucy, Lucy is that. How, the night of the fire singing. Crow explained, my son found a child in the grass behind the burning barn, badly burned, unable to speak from the smoke. We treated her wounds, but the trauma stole her memories. She didn't remember her name, her family. We called her Mary, raised her as our own. But I buried them. 2 bodies. The woman, yes, but the child's body, my son, said it was too damaged to be sure. You were wild with grief, wouldn't let anyone close to confirm. Emma knelt beside Cole, who was reaching out to touch his daughter's face with trembling hands. Lucy, baby, it's me. It's Papa. I know, Mary Lucy said simply. I remembered slowly. Dreams at first, then fragments. Singing Crow said I had to be strong enough before I could return. Had to know you were ready too. Ready, Cole's voice broke. To live again, not just exist. The child's wisdom was beyond her years, shaped by loss and 2 cultures. The spirit mother said you needed time to grieve properly. But then she came, she looked at Emma, and you started to wake up. Cole pulled his daughter into his arms, sobbing openly, while she patted his back with small, gentle hands. Emma turned away to give them privacy, but Singing Crow caught her arm. There is more you must know. The fire was not natural. I suspected as much. My son saw men that night, Rourke's men. They spread, the lamp oil lit the flames. The woman, she got the child out through a loose board but couldn't follow. The smoke took her quickly. Emma's blood ran cold. You're saying Rourke murdered Sarah Matthews? I say what my son saw, but who would believe Cheyenne words against a white man's money? I would, Emma said fiercely, and we're going to prove it. When they returned to town with Mary, she'd chosen to keep that name, said, Lucy belonged to the girl who died and been reborn. The reaction was explosive. Some called it a miracle. Others, particularly those in Rourke's pocket, called it a fraud. But Cole didn't care. His daughter was alive, and that changed everything. Emma threw herself back into treating the sick, now armed with Singing Crow's knowledge of local medicinal plants. The yellow root the old woman had mentioned proved to be a powerful antibacterial, and combined with proper sanitation and clean water from the wells, the tide began to turn. Mary became her assistant, translating symptoms for the Cheyenne patients who'd been affected, preparing herbal treatments with her small, skilled hands. The sight of Cole's daughter working alongside the woman doctor became a symbol of something new in Cedar Ridge: cooperation over division, healing over hate. But Rourke wasn't finished. Emma was treating a patient when Sheriff Wallace arrived, his face grim. Miss Sinclair, I've got papers here. Official complaint from Mr. Rourke. Says you're practicing without a license, endangering lives with experimental treatment. My treatments are saving lives. Maybe so, but he's got a judge's order. You stop now or I have to arrest you. The church erupted in protest. These people had watched Emma work herself to exhaustion, saving their families. But the law was the law, and Wallace had his duty. It's all right, Emma said quietly, removing her apron. I'll comply. No, Cole stepped forward. She won't. Cole, don't. Sheriff, you know what's right here. This woman has saved half the town. Rourke's trying to silence her because she exposed his poisoning of the water. That's not proven. Then let's prove it. Cole's voice carried the authority of his forgotten ranger days. Give us 3 days. If we can't prove Rourke's responsible for the contamination and the fire, Emma will leave town peacefully. Wallace hesitated, then nodded slowly. 3 days. But if Rourke pushes, he won't. Cole's smile was dangerous. He'll be too busy explaining things to the federal marshals. That night, Emma found Cole on the porch of his ranch, Mary asleep in his lap. They'd brought her home that afternoon, and she'd walked through the house, touching everything, remembering in pieces. Thank you, Cole said quietly, for standing up to Rourke, for everything. I couldn't let him win. Not after what he did to my father, to your family. Cole was quiet for a moment. Emma, what you said in the church about your father being murdered. Emma sat beside him, careful not to disturb Mary. He was investigating Rourke's operations in Boston, found evidence of bribery, poisoning, murder. But Rourke got to him first, destroyed his reputation, drove him to his death, made it look like suicide, but his last letter told me everything. I'm sorry. So am I, but at least I can finish what he started. She looked at Mary's peaceful face. She's remarkable. To survive what she did, to adapt to a completely different culture, to maintain such grace. She gets that from her mother. Sarah was the strongest person I knew. Until you. Their eyes met in the dim light, something shifting between them. Emma had been so focused on the medicine, the crisis, that she hadn't let herself acknowledge what had been building this connection, this recognition of one wounded soul by another. Cole, I know, he said softly. It's too soon, too complicated. But Emma, when this is over, when Rourke's dealt with and the town is safe, would you consider staying? Cedar Ridge needs a doctor. Mary needs a teacher who understands both worlds she belongs to. And what do you need? Time. To learn how to live again instead of just survive. To be the father Mary deserves. And maybe if you're willing to be patient with a broken-down cowboy who's forgotten how to hope, to see if what I feel when I look at you is what I think it is. Emma's hand found his into the darkness. I'm very patient. It's a doctor's best quality. And their worst. We're terrible at giving up on people, even when they've given up on themselves. Cole squeezed her hand gently. Good thing, too. The next morning brought unexpected allies. A rider from Billings arrived, but not with medical supplies. Instead, he carried a federal marshal's badge and a familiar face, Dr. William Sinclair, very much alive despite the reports of his death. Emma nearly fainted. Father, my dear girl. William embraced her, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry for the deception. It was the only way to keep you safe while I gathered evidence. You're supposed to be dead. A necessary fiction. Marshal Davies here helped me disappear after Rourke's first attempt on my life. We've been building a case, but we needed someone on the inside, someone Rourke wouldn't suspect was connected to me. So you sent me here to danger. To Cole Matthews, William corrected. The one man I knew would protect you when the truth came out. And I was right, wasn't I? Cole stood behind Emma, his presence steady and protective. With respect, sir, you took a hell of a risk with your daughter's life. I did, and I'll spend the rest of my life making amends for it. But right now we have work to do. Marshal Davies has warrants for Rourke's arrest, but we need evidence of his crimes here, the poisoning, the fires, all of it. Mary, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up. I can help. Singing Crow's son, he saw everything the night of the fire. He'll testify if you will promise a protection for the village. Marshal Davies, a weathered man with kind eyes, knelt to Mary's level. You have my word, little one. The Cheyenne who help us will be under federal protection. They spent the day gathering evidence, water samples, showing mercury contamination testimony from survivors' financial records Sam had secretly copied, showing Rourke's attempts to buy Matthews' land. But the crucial evidence came from an unexpected source. Mayor Hutchins arrived at the ranch at dusk, wetting despite the cool air. I need protection, he said without preamble. Rourke's planning something. Says if the marshal gets too close, he'll burn the whole town and blame it on the Cheyenne. You've been working with him, Emma accused. He owns my debts, owns half the town's debts. But I won't be party to mass murder. I have children in that town. Testify, Marshal Davies said. Full immunity if you provide evidence of his crimes. Hutchins pulled out a ledger. Everything's here. Bribes, murders, plans, including the Matthews fire. He bragged about it, said no one would believe a grieving drunk if he ever suspected. Cole's hands clenched, but Emma touched his arm, grounding him. When is he planning to this new fire? Tonight, during the town meeting, when everyone's gathered in one place. They had hours, maybe less. Cole transformed before Emma's eyes. The broken rancher vanished, replaced by the Texas Ranger he'd once been, decisive, dangerous, tactical. Samurai to the Cheyenne village. Tell Singing Crow we need every able warrior. Marshal, can you deputize them? Already done. Federal authority supersedes local law. Emma Mary, I need you to evacuate the sick and children quietly. Don't cause panic, but get them out of the church. Move them to the old millstone walls defensible near water. What are you planning, Emma asked, to end this? Rourke wants a fire. We'll give him one he doesn't expect. The evacuation had to be perfect, too fast, and Rourke's men would notice, too slow, and innocent people would burn. Emma and Mary moved through the shadows like ghosts, whispering urgent instructions to families, guiding children through back alleys toward the old mill. Mama? Emma, Mary whispered. The name had come naturally, surprising them both. There's movement near the church. Emma peered through the darkness. 3 men were positioning containers around the building's foundation lamp oil, just like the night Sarah Matthews died. Keep moving the children, Emma told Mary. I need to warn your father. But Cole was already aware. From her position, Emma could see him on the roof of the general store, Marshal Davies beside him, both armed with rifles. The Cheyenne warriors, led by Singing Crow's son Joseph, had taken positions throughout town, invisible in the shadows. They knew better than any white settler. The trap was set. Now they needed Rourke to walk into it. The town meeting was called for 8 o'clock. By 7:30, most of the town had gathered, or so it appeared. In reality, half were Cole's people in disguise, volunteers who'd risked everything to stand against Rourke's tyranny. Emma watched from the mill as Rourke himself appeared, flanked by 8 gunmen. He looked confident, assured of victory. Why wouldn't he be? He'd burned out obstacles before without consequence. Ladies and gentlemen, Rourke's voice carried across the square, I've called this meeting to discuss the lawlessness that's infected our town. A fake doctor spreading lies, a marshal overstepping his authority, and now savages threatening our peace. The only savage here is you, Rourke. Cole stepped from the shadows, no longer hiding. He wore his old ranger badge, the one he'd kept hidden for 5 years. Behind him, armed townspeople emerged from doorways and alleys. Cole Matthews, I should have made sure you died with your family. So you admit you killed them? Rourke laughed. Who'd believe you, a drunk rancher against a respected businessman? They'd believe this. Mayor Hutchins stepped forward, holding the ledger. Every crime documented, including your confession about the Matthews fire witnessed by 3 others who are prepared to testify. Rourke's confidence cracked. You treacherous. And this, William Sinclair, emerged from the church very much alive. Federal witness to attempted murder, fraud, and poisoning. Hello, Julian. Surprised to see me. You're dead. Reports of my death were carefully orchestrated, just like your crimes. Rourke reached for his gun, but froze as dozens of rifles aimed at him. Townspeople, Cheyenne warriors, federal deputies. He was surrounded, outnumbered, finished. Light it, he snarled to his men. Burn it all. His men moved toward their oil containers, but Mary's clear young voice rang out. Now, Cheyenne arrows, flaming but controlled, struck the containers before Rourke's men could spread the oil. The fire erupted upward away from buildings, creating a wall of flame that trapped the criminals in the square. Surrender, Marshal Davies commanded, or burn with your own fire. Most of Rourke's men threw down their weapons, but Rourke himself, consumed by rage, pulled a hidden pistol and aimed at Cole. The shot echoed across the square, but it was Rourke who felt Emma's derringer smoking in her steady hand. She'd shot his gun arm, disabling but not killing. That's for my father, she said calmly, then looked at Cole. And for the family you tried to destroy. As Marshal Davies arrested Rourke, reading charges that would see him hang or rot in federal prison, Cole crossed to Emma. His eyes held something she'd never seen before, hope whole and unbroken. You saved my life. Again. We saved each other. That's what partners do. Partners. Cole's voice was soft, intimate, despite the chaos around them. If you're asking. Before Cole could respond, Mary ran to them, throwing her arms around both. We won. The bad man can't hurt anyone anymore. No, sweetheart, Cole said, lifting his daughter. He can't. William Sinclair approached his expression proud but sad. Emma, I owe you an explanation. Later, father. Right now, just be glad we're both alive. The fire burned out safely, controlled by the Cheyennes' ancient knowledge and the town's newfound cooperation. As dawn broke, Cedar Ridge stood intact, scarred but stronger, united by shared survival. 3 weeks passed in a blur of testimony, federal procedures, and healing, both physical and emotional. Rourke was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to life in federal prison. His assets were seized, the money distributed among his victims. Cole received enough to save his ranch and expand it. Emma was officially cleared of all charges and reinstated as a licensed physician. The morning of William Sinclair's departure back to Boston, he found Emma in her new clinic, a proper building constructed where Rourke's mining office had stood, funded by the grateful town. You're not coming with me, he said. It wasn't a question. My life is here now, my practice, my patients. And Cole Matthews, Emma smiled, and Cole, and Mary. He's a good man. I knew he would be, even back at Antietam. There was something in his eyes on her that couldn't be broken, only bent. Father, why did you really send me here? The truth. William sat heavily. Because I was dying anyway. Cancer, the doctors said. Maybe a year, maybe less. If Rourke had succeeded in killing me, at least it would have meant something, exposing and protecting you. Father, but it seems I'm too stubborn to die on anyone's schedule but my own. He smiled sadly. I have maybe 6 months, Emma. I want to spend them knowing you're safe, happy, building the life I couldn't give you in Boston. Emma embraced her father, tears flowing freely. Stay here, let me treat you, be with you. No, my dear, your future is forward, not backward. I'll write, visit if I can, but don't mourn me while I'm living. Promise. I promise, I promise it. After William left, Emma found Cole and Mary at the ranch working with a new colt. Mary was demonstrating the gentling techniques Singing Crow had taught her, blending Cheyenne wisdom with her natural gift. She's going to be a fine horsewoman, Emma said, like her mother. Cole agreed, then paused. Both her mothers. The word hung in the air, and offer a question, a hope. Cole, I know we've only known each other a few weeks. I know you could go anywhere, do anything. But Emma, when I watch you with Mary, when I see how you've brought this town together, how you've brought me back to life, I can't imagine facing tomorrow without you. Are you proposing? I'm too much of a mess to propose properly, but I am asking if you'd consider it, eventually, when I've proven I can be the man you deserve. Emma looked at this wounded warrior who'd lost everything and chosen to live anyway, at the child who'd survived death and emerged bilingual and bicultural and beautiful at the ranch that had witnessed such tragedy and still stood strong. I don't need you perfect, Cole. I need you trying, every day choosing to try. Then I'm asking you to try with me, build something here. A family, a future, a chance at the happiness we both lost before. Yes. Yes, to all of it. To trying, to building, to the chance, Emma smiled through tears. But I have conditions. Name them. The clinic stays mine to run. Mary learns medicine from me and traditional healing from Singing Crow. And we build a new barn where the older one stood, not to forget Sarah, but to honor her memory with something living and useful. Cole pulled Emma into his arms, kissing her with a passion that had been dormant for 2 years now, roaring back to life. Mary cheered and danced around them, the wooden horse Mr. Gallopy clutched in her hands. Mama, Emma, and Papa are getting married. Not yet, Emma laughed, but Mary was already running toward town to spread the news. The wedding took place in spring, when the Montana hills blazed with wildflowers and the air smelled of possibility. The ceremony was held at the ranch in the new barn they'd built together, a symbol of resurrection and renewal. Emma wore her mother's dress, altered by the Cheyenne women who'd become her friends. Cole wore his ranger badge alongside his wedding suit, no longer hiding from who he'd been. Mary stood between them as witness, wearing a dress that blended both her cultures, American lace and Cheyenne beadwork. Do you, Emma Sinclair, take this man? Reverend Michael began. Wait, Emma interrupted. I need to say something first. She turned to the gathered crowd, townspeople, Cheyenne travelers who'd heard of the woman doctor and the cowboy who'd defeated corruption together. 2 years ago, Cole Matthews lost his wife and thought he had lost his daughter. He survived but stopped living. 6 months ago, I lost my father, my career, my home. I ran west, expecting nothing but a place to hide. She took Cole's hands. Instead, I found a man brave enough to feel again despite the pain. A daughter who bridges two worlds with grace. A town willing to change, to grow, to heal. I found a home not in a place, but in people who choose each other despite the odds. Emma May looked at Cole, her eyes bright. So yes, Reverend, I take this man, this child, this life, not because it's easy or safe, but because love isn't about avoiding pain, it's about finding something worth the risk. Cole's voice was rough when he spoke his vows. Emma, you walked into my life when I'd forgotten that life was worth living. You brought my daughter home, gave my ranch purpose, and showed me that second chances aren't about forgetting the past, but building on its foundation. I promise to love you with the same fierce devotion I loved before, but wiser now knowing how precious and fragile happiness can be. Mary stepped forward, surprising everyone. I want to make a vow too. The crowd murmured approval. I vow, Mary said solemnly, to love both my mothers, the one who gave me life and the one who helped me live it. To honor both my peoples, the Cheyenne who saved me and the town that welcomed me home. And to help Papa and Mama Emma remember to laugh, because laughter is the best medicine except for actual medicine. The crowd laughed through tears as Reverend Michael pronounced them family, not just husband and wife, but something deeper, forged in fire and healing. That night, as wedding guests danced in the new barn, Emma found a moment of quiet with Cole on the hill where Sarah was buried. They'd added a new headstone, not for death, but for life. Lucy Matthews, reborn as Mary, proof that love transcends even death. She would have been happy, Cole said softly. Sarah, knowing Lucy survived, knowing you're here to mother her. She is happy, Emma replied. I feel her sometimes in the wind through the grass, in Mary's laugh. The dead don't leave us, Cole. They just change how they stay. A year later, Emma's clinic had expanded to serve 3 counties. She trained apprentices in both Western medicine and traditional healing, creating a new synthesis that saved lives. Mary now 10 served as translator and assistant, equally comfortable with stethoscope and sacred herbs. Cole's ranch prospered, becoming a center for breeding horses, using both American and Cheyenne techniques. The integration wasn't always smooth, prejudice died hard on the frontier, but progress came in small victories and gradual acceptance. The letter from Boston arrived on a summer morning. William Sinclair had died peacefully, his final act establishing a scholarship fund for women medical students and Native American healers. His last words, the letter said, were of pride in his daughter and the life she'd built. Emma cried in Cole's arms, grief mixing with gratitude. Her father had given her one last gift, not just money or vindication, but the knowledge that choosing love over fear had been the right decision. He knew, Cole said softly, that you'd found what he wanted for you. A home, a life worth living, a family worth fighting for, a second chance that became a first choice. That evening, as they sat on the porch, watching Mary teach younger children the horse-gentling songs singing Crow had taught her, Emma thought about the journey that had brought them here. A doctor fleeing disgrace, a cowboy drowning in grief, a child caught between two worlds. They'd each been broken in their own way, each running from or towards something they couldn't name. But broken things, when mended with care and patience and love, often became stronger than they'd been before. The Japanese had a word for it, kintsukuroi, the art of repairing with gold, making the repaired object more beautiful for having been broken. That's what they were, a family repaired with gold, their scars transformed into strength. What are you thinking? Cole asked, his arm around her shoulders. About second chances, how they're not really about getting to try again, but about choosing differently with the wisdom of what we've learned. And what have we learned? Emma looked at their daughter, at the town spread below them, at the man beside her who'd chosen to live when dying would have been easier. That love isn't the absence of loss, but the courage to risk it again. That families aren't just blood, but choice. That healing happens not when we forget our wounds, but when we transform them into wisdom. Cole kissed her temple. That's a lot of learning. We had good teachers, pain and hope, and each other. As the stars emerged in the vast Montana sky, Mary's young voice carried on the wind, singing in both English and Cheyenne about horses and healing, about families lost and found, about the circle of life that brings all things back to beginning. Emma closed her eyes and listened to her daughter's song, her husband's breathing the settled sounds of a ranch at peace. Somewhere she knew Sarah Matthews and William Sinclair were watching, satisfied that their loves had found new vessels, their legacies, new life. The cowboy had gotten his second chance. The doctor had found her true calling. The child had discovered that home could be two places at once, both equally real. And in a barn that had risen from ashes, in a town that had chosen justice over easy corruption, in hearts that had risked breaking again for the chance of wholeness, love had proven itself stronger than lost hope, more enduring than grief. This wasn't the ending of their story, but the beginning of all the stories that would follow children who would be born to this blended family patience, who would be saved by integrated medicine bridges built between cultures that had been separated by misunderstanding and fear. But tonight it was enough to sit together on the porch of a ranch that had witnessed death and chosen life, to be a family that had been shattered and chosen to rebuild, to be living proof that second chances, when taken with courage and grace, could become the greatest gifts of all. The moon rose over Cedar Ridge, painting the world in silver and shadow, blessing the cowboy and his doctor, the child of two worlds, and the love that had brought them home.